Good evening, captive audience, sports fans. Don Anderson here, along with Sonny Danforth on another. How you doing, Sonny?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. It's a beautiful day over here in Eastern Oregon.
All right, that's outstanding. Same here. If it's going to be hot here, it's probably going to be hotter there. But this morning started out so cool, and then I saw the weather report. They forecast, I think, 99 tomorrow, and it's like you've got to be kidding me. And by about, it was cool till about 4 o'clock today, and then it started heating up.
Yeah, we're going to get hot over here too. In fact, I'm checking it. It says it's 93 degrees outside,
Hmm.
and by Saturday it is to be 100. Nope, nope. Now they've revised it by Friday.
Hmm.
So it's
Wow.
you're gonna it's gonna get a hot weekend, and then it's gonna cool
Wow.
down again. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It was it's probably our last heat wave. September is, early September and August are like this, and then it starts to taper in mid-September, which is
I
pleasant.
think it's gonna be our next to last heat wave.
You think another one, huh?
I do. I do. Because we have Roundup coming up, and it's
Hmm.
always hot
Oh,
during
okay.
Roundup. It
Right,
is
right.
like always hot during
Uh-huh.
Roundup. And it's definitely it's a transition time of weather.
Mhm.
So
Now,
yeah, I do expect it to warm back up.
has it ever rained that you
Yes.
recall? Yeah,
Yes. We've
that must be
had and we have a double booth in the Dairy Queen parking lot in Pendleton.
hmm.
And one time I knew that it had rained overnight, and I went in the morning
Hmm.
to open up our booth, and there had at like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning had been like a dust devil came through there,
Uh-huh.
and somebody's tent was up and blown over, and it damaged ours a
Uh-huh.
little bit. Ours pretty much
Uh-huh.
was okay, but it was,
Right.
and then it was pouring rain. It's like, oh no, this is that's when I changed and got us some tents that
Mhm.
are supposed to be waterproof,
Right, right.
and
Uh-huh.
much better quality.
Yeah,
And anyway, it's an adventure. It's fun, and it's always great to see the people and connect
yeah.
with the voters and the people coming through.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, I did this past weekend. It was the Oregon's football's home opener in Eugene, and my wife's from Eugene. I have a lot of family there, and a good friend of mine came out from Dallas, and spent like 3 or 4 days. It was an absolute blast. But it was 92 degrees, which means it's 100 in the stadium. It was absolutely blazing. But it's like a giant party, old home week. You see people you haven't seen in years. I mean, the game is almost an excuse for being together, right?
Right,
And
right.
they won, which was the good news. But they didn't win in very good fashion. But a W is a W. But I was glad to see Idaho play so good. It's the best Idaho team has been in forever. So that was kind of cool. You kind of root for them too because it's the neighbor state. So yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, Bobby, I was at the game. It was awesome. It was awesome.
That's great. That's great. I'm glad you got to go have fun, see some friends, and see your old friend who came to town.
Yes, exactly. And one of these days, I'll tell you all that story. And that's probably a good bridge to get into our meet today, which, of course, the continuing saga of the presidential election, which continues to blow one's mind. What did I just hear her say? Part of the interview, she said it was important to have deadlines around time. That has got to be one of the silliest things. I mean, it's like just say stuff. Just I guess that's the epitome of word salad, right? If you have
Yeah.
nothing to say, then say nothing. that that that
I think that
apparently
defines Kamala Harris.
right. That apparently is the strategy. It's absolutely amazing that you can hide from the media for what has it been? Has it been like 40 days now? 45 days? And then the one interview you do is basically a powder puff interview with CNN, which is basically the shill network, with your vice president sitting here as a crutch. And then they cut out how many minutes of it? They only use like 18 of what, 40 minutes?
Yes, yes, and that tells you a lot right there. They really had to stretch out 18 minutes. That whole interview was full of commercials.
Mhm.
And then later, of course, learned that it was like 40, 41 minutes long, and then they only aired 18 minutes. That tells you how bad it was.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So the strategy must be to hide her in the basement, just like they did with Biden, keep away from the cameras as long as absolutely possible. So that percentage of the American electorate that just looks at national news really doesn't know. And you have to wonder what their response is going to be when they find out, which is coming up pretty soon, right? The this debate.
Yes, it is. It's next Tuesday on the 10th,
Um,
and it's going to be interesting. And I saw today that Comrade Cackling Kamala is still, her team is still trying to, um, get the mics muted or unmuted, I should say. And, I mean, like, give it up. Just go have a debate,
yeah,
but I really believe that she's afraid. And then you're going to have to see, is she really going to show up?
yeah. I mean, she wants to have the debate with notes, with she wants to control all the terms, the pen and
Yeah.
paper. I mean, the
Yeah.
ability to read responses, and it's CNN, so they'll probably feed her the questions anyway. It's incredible that Trump goes into these situations where it's like a boxing match where the referee's on the other person's side, and you have one
Yeah.
hand tied behind your back on top of that, and he still delivers a knockout blow. It's unbelievable.
Yes, but I have full confidence in our man, Mr. Trump. I have full confidence in his abilities.
Well, here's the thing, and I do have confidence in his abilities as well. But if it weren't for the candidate being so bad, I'd have a lot less confidence. I mean, it's not just that she's bad in terms of her persona, unwillingness to look at the camera, the way she sits in the chair. There's like these are basics of job interviews, which, if you think about it, this is precisely what she's avoiding is a job interview. I mean, that's what these press conferences are about that she's avoided. She doesn't have the skill set. Now, think about her in front of the president of China, or the president of Russia, or the president of any of our adversaries, or even our allies. I mean, how can they take someone like her seriously? She doesn't have the presentation, and then we get to the policies. And I thought this was really interesting. And I think that all really Trump has to do is walk through some of these positions. So I was going to go through a couple, and we'll have a little banter in each one because I think it's so fascinating. So I saw this poll, and it said 71 to 86% of Democrats and Biden independents are unaware of controversial Harris positions. So here's just a couple, just a sampling of those. Let's see. She would consider allowing death row inmates to vote. Only 14% of Democrats and independents who voted for her said they were aware of that. 86% were not aware that she would allow death row inmates to vote. And she said that. Um, Here's another one. She advocates for the elimination of private health insurance. She wants Medicare for all, so the government paying for everything. Let's just go full Soviet Union. Only 19% said they were aware of that. 82% were not. So if you're happy with your plan, tough nuggies, she's going to take it from you. They don't know that. Uh, she promoted the fund to bail out protesters during the violent riots in
Yeah.
2020. Almost 80% were not aware of that. The press that's been shilling for her has been
Yes.
hiding this stuff from the general public. She supports abolishing ICE. Only 23% were aware of that. 77% were not aware of that. And this is only a partial listing. I'll stop here because I just want to give you a chance to respond, Sonny. But literally, all you have to do is publish her positions, and there's video of her saying it. Um,
Yes.
so there's no escaping it, and she will not address it, and there's no way to address it. So let me zip it for a minute. And
Well, I think Trump's campaign is going to do just that, because I have seen on social media what would be a commercial of of Comrade Kamala stating her positions on what she would like to do, and because she has stated them in so many places. And then in the interview, very telling when she says, my position hasn't changed. She would not tell you her position. She would
Mhm.
not define what she wants to or stands up for or anything like that. But what she did say is, my position hasn't changed. So basically, don't worry about whatever I might say. My core
Mhm.
value and my position hasn't changed. This is politics speak, and so she's and the media is absolutely complicit
Mhm.
in hiding her, just as they did Biden. But we know the legacy media, the mainstream, as they so call it, I believe more independent media is becoming more mainstream media, but they are not telling the truth to people.
Oh my
And
goodness. Yeah, the it's worse than flip-flopping. I remember back when Bush was running against Gore and those guys, and they'd argue about the flip. This is not flip-flopping. It's literally taking the position of the candidate you're running against and then claiming it as your own. I've never seen anyone do that before. So she's now in favor of no taxes on tips, for example. She's now in favor of a border wall. It's like unbelievable that they think they can say a lie that big. Now, if you're talking to your base, you can get away with those kinds of things. And I sort of speak to some of this is that they live in an echo chamber. So they think they can get away with this. Like the crazy focus on abortion. Um, that's an issue that only the far left cares about. So if it gets them out to vote, but that's not going to get them to win because there's just not enough of them.
yeah,
It's just interesting to me.
yeah, and there's a poll that that I saw today, and I'll tell you, it is Harris is just not doing well at all, and I mean like at all, so it's I'm not familiar with this Nate Silver, but at the end of this particular article, they say actually, there it's what we're seeing is that her bump from the convention has is falling rapidly, and truthfully, overall, it's looking like right now Trump is at like 55% and Harris is at 44. But I will tell you, for those of us we've that are Trump supporters and want to save the nation, we can't let up on the gas at all because they're saying, well, Harris has a slight lead. Well, in some one or a few states, she might, but
Mhm.
I don't believe I have a hard time believing that she does. And because in other states, it is just overwhelming Trump country. And, we're at a time, in fact, it's so where we're at is this is not voting just for the presidency. This is voting to save our nation. This is voting for the survival of our Constitution.
Well, I'll tell
This
you,
is
yeah, I'll take you next level. It's voting for the world. It's
it
voting for
is.
Western civilization. If you look around the world, conservative parties, conservative people are rising up in Germany, in Britain, in France, in Sweden, in the Netherlands. I mean, the entire Western world, and it's primarily around this crazy immigration issue. But they are
Yeah.
all fighting a government, Canada, and they're all fighting a government that's suppressing them, and that is ignoring what the wishes of the people, every one of them, and they are looking to us as the last opportunity to really stop it. Because if we don't stop it, who's going to stop it? We're the only country in the world that has a Second Amendment, for example. And if we had not that, they probably would have already overrun us. So
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's almost hyperbole. Every election, everybody says it's the most important. And it's true. The last two, the one in 2016 was the most important for everything before that. The one in 2020 was the most important. And this one is next level because it's inarguable now, inarguable that these people have shown themselves to be communists.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. And it's really, before. in 2020, I thought it was coming pedal to the metal communism, but it really is now. And it's not just, and it's everywhere, everywhere that you're seeing. And I heard Trump saying Marxism in his rallies. He's using Marxism, and which is the same thing, as communism. And it's, we're in a huge fight. This election is so important. All of our elections are, but and yes, Bobby says, or Pat says that
Seriously?
Wall's in-laws and actually his family, his brother. It's not just his in-laws. His brothers and their family are all for Trump. There's a picture of him posted with a Trump, all in Trump shirts, with a Trump flag and what, and they're going, I'm
Uh-huh.
not voting for, Harris Walls, and it's Walls family for Trump. And it is a big deal. It's a big, big, big deal. But it's amazing. How would you like to be that candidate, the vice president candidate, and your family's going, no,
Well,
wait, sorry, but we don't
oh,
support him.
this and that's another one. This has got to be the most dishonest vice presidential candidate. You got to go back to what Tom, for those of us old enough, Spiro Agnew, uh, Eagleton. I mean, guys who literally went to prison like after or got kicked out of office, right? It's unbelievable how much this guy lies about. And the thing about it is, it's documentable lies. I mean, you're lying about your service record, for example.
Yeah.
Well, and the other one
Yeah.
was Kamala herself lying about where she worked at McDonald's. I mean, it's like
Oh,
these
yeah.
things are like, it's just incredible, the how easily they lie. Um, but
It
again, the
just
problem
rolls
circles
off
back
too
to,
easy, Don.
yeah, yeah, it's just so easy for them to lie. And then the faking of the black accent. I can't remember what the
Oh,
last one
my
that she did,
word.
but it's just so patronizing.
Yeah.
Fortunately, more and more people are catching up with this. If any of you go on YouTube and you look at these young podcasters, they are pretty much universally blasting her. And
Yeah.
and I think she's clearly they're losing the youth vote for the first time. I don't know if ever this has happened to the Democrat Party.
I think part of the reason is because Trump went on TikTok, and a lot of youth are on TikTok. I'm not on
Mhm.
TikTok, and
Right.
and yet so I think that could be one of the reasons. I don't know, but I over the last few days, his rallies, there was some rapper I never heard of that
Mhm.
had just come out and endorsed him, and
Mhm.
an influencer with millions of people following came out and endorsed Trump on
Mhm.
social media, not at a rally. This rapper did it at a rally, and there are just
Mhm.
more and more and more. And in one of the articles that I had seen earlier today, Trump has got something like 40% of the Hispanic vote, and she doesn't. It's so there's
Yeah.
more and more people are waking up to the fact, and them
Mhm.
doing, but you see, her putting on a fake accent, that is Democrat playbook. They do that all the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember Hillary did it.
Mhm.
Gosh, what's his name? Biden did it. And and the press suppresses these numbers. I think people are seeing they had enough. You see these interviews on the street in Chicago, for example, it's like incredible. People are looking at, hey, look, they're taking it. Now that it's physically hitting you, and we've talked about this,
Yeah.
it's immigrants in your neighborhood, it's immigrants in your schools, immigrants being put up in first class hotels while homeless veterans are in the street. People have had enough, and they're starting to finally understand for the last 40, 50 years they've been lying to you. They always show up around election time and then they disappear after that. um, and this might be the first time they actually pay for it. And it's really encouraging.
Yes, and it is because of those ramifications of the illegals being sent over to New York, and New York, the people of New York are pissed. They're saying, are you taking care of them? They're getting phones and credit cards and a place to stay for free for 6 months. And I'm a tax-paying citizen. I'm a veteran, and I get kicked out of where I live to put an illegal in. It is backfiring so bad. But I think more people are waking up to the fact this is the great replacement. And their priority now in California and Oregon,
Mhm.
California has voted and passed $150,000 for first-time home buyers, preferably if you are a minority
Mhm.
and slash illegal. And you may or may not even have to pay it back. Oregon is looking at doing $30,000 to
Mhm.
illegal first-time home buyers. And, this is buying
They're
votes, plain and simple.
buying votes, and their policies are designed to to divide us.
Yes, 100.
What better way to divide us than to do things like that? I'm not sure if you caught this, and this is what happens when you have a state that has a supermajority like California. So they recently passed a reparations bill. Did you catch that? So the reparations bill is they're going to give $400,000 to every black citizen from California. Now,
Mhm.
I don't know how many people that is, but assuming it's about the same percent ratio as the rest of the country, there's 40 million people in California. Let's say 13% of them are black. So 10% of 40 million is what? 400,000, somewhere in
Right,
there, right?
right.
So, so where are they going to find, first of all, $400,000 to give? Number one. And all of a sudden, the Governor Newsom is backpedaling on that big time. It's on his desk. He didn't want to sign it because he knows it's like a death wish, right?
Well, it
But
is, and California is already financially in the hole. They've got a deficit. They're flat broke.
so talk about the ultimate in pandering. But here's the hilarious part, though. Now he doesn't want to sign it, but now you've got the entire Black Caucus of California putting the heat on for him to sign it. And once again, a house divided against itself can't stand. When you have that many mini groups that you have to satisfy, that you're not acting on principle. It's not going to work long term. It's going to implode. Um, and it's terrible. I'm not sure how far California's got to fall before they finally wake up, but maybe that's just what's that. Maybe it just has to crash. It
Well,
just has to crash.
I keep wondering how much pain people have to endure in order
Hmm.
to actually wake up.
I
And
think, yeah.
see that they've been voting this is what you've been voting for, and now you're not happy with it. And I don't think that truly that they realize that what they're voting for is really what they don't want. We
Yeah.
do have, not everybody, but we do have some low informed voters that
Hmm.
think, oh, yeah, it's free. You know what? I get lunch at school, it's free. There is no
Hmm.
free lunch.
Yeah.
We know.
I hate the police. You take them out, and then what
Yeah,
happens?
yeah, exactly.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah, let's defund the police.
right.
But as anyway, yeah, it's we're going to have to see how this goes, and I think it's going to be interesting next Tuesday to see
Mhm.
how that debate is. I think Trump is going to do very, 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 very well.
And it takes me back a couple of more points that people don't know about. Going back to that survey, so here's one. Let's see. Harris's statement that entering the U.S. illegally should not be a crime. That's one of her positions. Only 26% of the population is aware of that. 74% said they were not. So they're not aware that she's pro illegal
Yes,
immigration. Uh,
yes,
20, she's sponsoring the Green New Deal. 27% said they were aware. 70% said they were not. Now think about this. If you're in Pennsylvania, this is a person who is against coal mining, against fracking, stopped the pipeline. What have they done to the blue collar workers in that state? They those policies are direct cause for the reason why our gas prices are up 50%. A direct cause for unemployment being as high as it is in Pennsylvania. How do you vote for this? Um, and
yeah,
again, I think all Trump needs to do is just point that stuff out. It's because it's factual, it's inarguable.
yeah. Stick to the policies, Stick to the policies and what's worked, because
Mhm,
when I have talked with people and they go, "Oh, I just can't stand Trump," and I ask them, "Well, how'd you like his policies? How did
mhm.
you like what he did for America?" They
Right.
are left speechless, Don.
Right. Yeah. And the analogy again is people have, and again, people who do that, who say those things, is because they've been
Mhm.
watching too much of regular media. Because otherwise, you would not think that. But
No.
stop for a minute and think about. I'll use sports as an analogy. A lot of people didn't like Belichick, but you know what? The Patriots kept winning, so they kept him because they kept winning. Right? It's worrying about personality and not worrying about policy is like
Yeah.
crazy. It really is.
And Kamala has said, I will do price controls
Mhm.
so that the food, that we're having people taking advantage and price gouging. She couldn't even say gouging, but anyway,
Price
you know,
gauging, price gauging.
gauging, yes, price gauging, and yet, and grocery store chain owners are bashing her, saying that is communism.
Mhm.
Price
Right.
controls are communism. And so thankfully, people are speaking out, and you have to push back and speak
Mhm.
out. It's crazy, and but yet, so because she is saying some of those things, even the and I don't know if the media that the left is watching is seeing that. I don't have any idea, but
And here's,
I hope
what
so.
yeah. One other thing to consider is when people our age group can use terms like communist, Marxist, and we all know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
But people 30 years younger than us, they don't have a memory of that. The education around that has been eliminated in the public school system.
true.
They weren't alive during the Cold War, or,
Yeah,
or certainly haven't been educated on the ramifications of that. So, one of the things I think is going to be important for our generation to do, and probably for Trump and those others to do, is to, yes, you can call them Marxists, but then you need to explain what happens under Marxism. And the examples are all around us. You need to explain Venezuela, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, the Soviet Union, China, North Korea. You need to explain. Here's what happens when you do that. Price controls have been tried. We know those things don't work. This isn't the 1920s when they didn't know. We know. Hell, we tried it here in the 70s, and it was a disaster.
hmm.
Uh, and so that those things need to be explained, and I hope that they will do that.
Well, you're right, they do, because but and part of what we're seeing is the indoctrination in our public school systems,
Mm,
okay, that are turning out students that are activists.
mhm,
That's why we're seeing, I believe, more student activists
mhm.
than we ever did. You usually saw them when they got to college,
Right, right, sure,
but
sure.
now you're seeing them in middle school, even, they're walking with the teachers on a strike. They
Mhm.
don't even,
Well, the thing is that they realize where those teachers come from. Those teachers come from the universities, and it took them a while to infiltrate down into the secondary, educational system. So you go to
yeah.
college, you get indoctrinated as Marxists. That process took place from the 80s till probably the 2010s.
Hmm.
Now those teachers are replacing the people who are Americans, if you will, patriots who retired, and now they're replaced by these communists who've been educated by the educational system. And so, increasingly, it's imperative for one of a couple of things to happen. Number one, you got to remove your kids from public school. You just have to. And if you can't, for whatever reason, do that, then you got to get in there and change the system. And I think the best way to change the system is to introduce competition through something like a voucher program. I do not think, I'm not saying don't try it, but I don't think it's going to be effective to pass laws saying they can't teach this and they can't do that, because you can't have a police person in every classroom. You can't change the hearts and minds of teachers who've been indoctrinated that way. And if
True.
it's your kid, are you willing to literally risk their life? Because it really now is not just about them not being educated, not knowing the ABCs and all of that. Now it's that, are they going to come out chopped up? I mean, literally, are they going to do medical procedures on them without your knowledge? Are they going to do mental damage to them? And by the time you get them back, and now you got to undo that. Their entire childhood is wiped out. That's where we are. It's This is the pull the fire alarm point of view. If any of you have grandchildren or are young enough to have children, it's this is not a let's wait and try something out. This is like you got to get them out.
Well, you do, and like, and nobody's coming to save us. It's us that has to fight back and pay attention to this and get involved and do what we need to do. And so, yeah, to your point, it's even that you could lose custody of your child, not just getting cut up or given drugs
Hmm.
because they've a teacher who says, "Oh, they're probably ADHD. I'll just slip them something." And the parent will never know
Yeah, and there's
until the
cases
child
of
is
yeah,
18 or graduates high school. And that's whichever comes first.
and the damage
And
is irreversible.
it is. It is. So, and I think this is why we're seeing more of our public school enrollment dropping, and
Hmm.
more private schools are growing because of this very thing. And so parents are doing that, but there's so much more that needs to be done, which is another reason that we need
Hmm.
Trump in, because he says, you know what, we just need to eliminate the Department of Education,
Oh, 100%.
put it back to the states. And
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
And
I'm
I remember Reagan saying that clear back in the 80s, and he didn't get it done, but he was the first person to raise it. And I didn't quite understand it then, but he was
Yeah,
100% right. I mean, it goes back to that Abraham Lincoln, to paraphrase Abraham Lincoln, what the people can do for themselves, they should do for themselves. And certainly we can educate our children. It's not like public roads or built or having a defense. Education's our individual responsibility. And if you'd like to pay for your kid to go to private school, you should pay for them to go to private school. If you want to raise them, if you want to homeschool them yourself, you should homeschool them yourself. But the dollars that we're taxed for should not go someplace else. It should come back to you. Um,
100%. 100%, I agree. And we had this past 2 years or year and a half, two ballots in Oregon. One was for the right to put your child to any school you want,
mhm,
in district, in out of district and everything, and the money would follow the student. And it's called Let Them Learn. And they didn't get enough signatures for to make it on the 2024 general election ballot, but they are starting all over at ground zero to
mhm,
try to get it on the ballot in 2026.
mhm,
So if anybody, and I'm going to say this because if anybody signed the petition, please go to Let Them Learn. I believe it's letthemlearn.com,
mhm,
and sign a petition again. Ask what you can do. I don't know if they're ready for signing petitions. So, but
mhm,
sign up to be involved and help to get that on the ballot come 2026. But I do know that I've gotten an email from them that they're going to renew that effort.
mhm.
Now, I want to go with one of our comments about the school in Georgia. You heard about the shooting today.
Like 10 minutes, like right before we started. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So two people are dead, and nine are in the hospital. And it's awful.
Mhm,
It's awful. And I right before we came on, um, in fact, on this article I have here, it has an update that four have died. I'm wrong. Okay, it was four have died, two
mhm,
students and two teachers, and nine are in the hospital. And the shooter was arrested. They have him in custody, 14-year-old, and they're saying that he will be tried as an adult. Immediately, they're saying that he'll be tried as an adult.
mhm,
And then right before we came on, I had read that the FBI was actually looking at this person. They're looking to confirm if it was this same person a year ago that had threatened to shoot up a school. So they're looking if that actually is the same person that was at 13 looking to do this, and it's a shame.
mhm,
And my our hearts, and prayers go to those that in Georgia that were afflicted by this and had to experience that. but I also saw that an article that I was looking on social media, actually on X, right before coming on, and there was a person, um, an adult that was on ABC that said, you know, we need to have armed teachers in the class in at school. Be allowed to have armed teachers at school. And
Mhm.
the ABC just went, oh no, we got to cut this. They didn't expect her to say that. And they're going to backtrack real quick
Yeah.
and let's go to commercial and whatever.
Well, if we're not going to do that, what about like airport security type situation? I mean, if I mean, if you're not going to allow teachers to arm themselves, then why would you not structure things such that it's like going shootings don't happen inside airports anymore for a reason. We
Right.
screen people. It's just there's multiple issues with this, for sure. And of course, one of the
Yeah.
things I'm sure we're going to find, as we usually do, is what's the common theme amongst kids who do these shoot ups? It's generally boys with train wreck family backgrounds, where no dad was involved or the dad was just a nightmare.
Yeah.
Um, so uh, there's
So
that.
it's really sad, about that. And then, actually, right along this line, the Nashville Trans Shooter Manifesto has been released.
Okay.
And so it's been a year and a half.
hmm
And so it's been released. And it was a biological woman who identified as a transgender man, was
hmm
28 years old.
hmm
And I saw a little bit of that on social media, and I do have an article here with it from PJ Media. And I'll tell you, this was a person that wrote, "What's the matter with my mind?
hmm
Why won't it work right? Why does my brain not work right?"
hmm
This is a person that's 28 years old and has some serious issues. It wasn't the gun that did it.
hmm No, it never is. And I tell you,
No.
I really think you start evaluating these people, and it's like the child raising that happened. It didn't happen. I think
No.
every human being, the first 15 years of your life, needs to be the most important person to someone. And
Yeah.
that's not happening in a society that doesn't value family.
No.
The thing that we promote is single motherhood, which is about the hardest life you can live. So you're alone, you're trying to work, you're trying to and then society promotes this whatever feels good, do it. It doesn't promote the sacrifices that come along with motherhood or fatherhood. So kids read that, they know they're unimportant, they're left alone, nobody cares about them, and there's a certain percentage of them that are going to spiral out of control.
Yeah.
And look, and we never saw school shootings when we were kids. I mean, high school I went to they had like a shooting, they had like a rifle team, and kids had guns in their locker rooms. It was never an issue. But we didn't have kids with no dads around. And
Very few. It wasn't as prevalent as today, for sure. I mean, I grew up with a single mom that raised
Mhm,
three kids,
yeah,
and it's definitely, it takes a toll on the family
mhm,
and on the kids, for sure. But at the same time, I had a my grandfather played a huge role in our lives, and other family members did as well. And and as you mentioned, I don't remember our school having a shooting team, but it wasn't uncommon to see a shotgun in
mhm,
the window of a pickup truck parked on school campus.
yeah,
It wasn't it that was not an uncommon sight where I grew up. I grew up in a small town,
mhm,
relatively, and
yeah.
yeah, and we didn't have any of that. So there's so much going on now, and the pressures that you and I grew up on.
Mhm.
Every generation has their own, and I think today they're worse.
Oh, absolutely. Well, just to, there's exceptions to every rule, and I think you were definitely an exception. But you also had more extended family then, and to step in when things went sideways, and that
Yeah.
doesn't exist anymore. There was like a built-in safety net, people who provide you uh, with that protective blanket, if you will, and with uh, the rules of how to behave in society. That largely doesn't exist. When you have 85%, at least in the inner city, born
Mhm.
without a dad, that is like hideous. And then you have, women who have multiple non-biological men related to their kids coming in and out of the house.
Mhm.
Now, it, I got some land to sell you, some oceanfront property in Nebraska, if you
Yeah.
think that doesn't go sideways. And
Yeah.
that's seriously underreported or not reported at all. Think about the damage done to those girls who wind up growing up, being abused. And of course, nobody's going to report that. And
No.
those things, they've always happened, but not on the scale that they're happening now.
No.
Um,
No, and we have so much more today. I mean, there wasn't cell phones when you and I were growing up.
oh,
I mean, we had a rotary phone at our house, and then we got a push button one, like when
mhm,
I was in high school,
mhm. Oh my
a
goodness.
banana phone, that had push buttons.
The, yeah, the ability to access stuff that you just couldn't access back then.
No,
I
no,
mean, the closest thing you could come to porn was a Playboy magazine or something, right? I mean, which is a nothing burger compared to what these kids get access to now.
exactly, exactly. And they're just on their phones,
Mhm. Right.
and on and who knows what. So it's
Yeah, and all of that damages the ability to have a relationship. I mean, stop and think about this for a minute. And I have any studies on this. This is just me, just observation. So if you grew up in a family and you had like 3 or 4 kids, and all your neighbors had 3 or 4 kids,
hmm
you're learning how to socialize. You can't help it. You're learning how to share. You're sharing a bedroom. You're sharing toys. You can't help that. And you're in a neighborhood with other kids, so
yeah,
you're learning how to play together. Nobody's organizing that. You're figuring out how to play your own games, whether it's touch football or whether it's like jacks or jump rope. You're figuring it out. And those are skills that you need to navigate adult life. Now you fast forward to now.
100%.
Yeah. You fast forward to now. You might be one kid, right? And maybe there's no mom or dad in the house. Maybe there's just one. And that person's working all the time. What are you doing after school? You're sitting there playing on your video games. You're not interacting with other kids because there aren't any other kids. It's stunning. I'll
Yeah.
go back to my old neighborhood just to give you a quick example, then I'll be quiet. I counted there were roughly 80 kids within a 4 block radius when I was growing up. A good friend of mine that was just visiting me this week, and we went back, and I told him there's one kid on this block under 18, not under 18. She just turned 18 and she's going to college. There's literally no kids on that block. Fast forward 60 years, right? It's That's a stunning change. And the impact is a number of the public schools, and this is in Portland, are closing or they're open. Schools that used to have 3,500 kids have
Mhm.
like 300. Well,
Yes.
that
Yes.
think about the ramifications of that long term. Not to mention the impact on things like Social Security. Who's going to be working to pay the Social Security? It's crazy when you run through the impact of these things.
Well, it's true. It's true. Speaking of that, there is an article that I've got here that is on, let me find it here. Oh, I hope I didn't. Oh, I hope I didn't. It was about the economy contracting, and I hope I didn't close it. I think I did. And our economy is contracting actually quite a bit
Mhm,
because when you have less people, and it's not doing as well as some might want you to think it is. I
mhm.
don't, I always look at some business news, try to in the morning, and things are just not looking as hopeful as people might want to think it is. And I guess I think I closed that article on
Mhm.
accident, and about the economy doing some contraction.
Yeah, well, you look at, and I don't think we're in this situation yet, but you look at Japan, for example, where the replacement rate is something like 1.2 or something. It's like one of the
Mhm.
lowest replacement rates in the world. And there's And the suicide rate is like through the roof, particularly around the elderly, because they're all alone. You've got, grandmothers whose husband have died, for example, and I should say grandmothers, women of grandmother age. There's no
Hmm.
grandchildren, and they're pushing strollers with dolls in them. I mean, it's just stunning, and there's no relation because the young, because they can't afford anything, have to work, you know, 80 hours a week, and they're never around. So this is what happens to a society that doesn't build relationships, and eventually you come down to that point where you don't have enough kids to support the elderly. Then what? Um,
That's a fact. That's a fact. And when you see all these young people that there are, and you see them with their face in their phone, and yet you cannot have a conversation. They won't look you in the eye. They feel intimidated by that. Like as you mentioned, all of the things that we did, not having electronics, it helped to develop us. And think about the ones that just spent a year or two wearing a mask at school.
oh, I
And
can't.
and
Even,
this is what they saw of people, and they don't see the smile
yeah,
you
and then
know
to be taught to live in fear,
yeah,
because that's
yeah,
what that does. And you think back, and I'm sure all of us can think about the crazy things we did when we were young. I mean, we shared stories when my friend was here. Yeah, jumping off the roofs of buildings, and riding bikes down hills through red lights, and building go-karts with no brakes. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
wonder but we're all alive. We still have the scars in our knees to show for it, but
yes,
everybody developed great social skills from that stuff, and we're
yeah.
taking away kids' opportunity to have that, um, by doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and this is where we have to pay attention to what's going on. We have to speak up, and we have to push back at every chance that we can. So I'm going to change the subject now a little bit because I've got a couple of things we I wanted to bring up. Some is good news, some's not so good.
Mhm.
And this one is Coors Molson Coors is scaling back its DEI
I love it.
initiatives, and including changes to executive compensation and employee training programs. So there
Mhm.
are a number of corporations that have gone, that's just not worked out very well for us. And they're
Yeah.
changing, they're reversing.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I found like four different articles with other companies. For example, here you go, Jack Daniels. They were
Mhm.
doing the same, which is hard to believe. We're talking about the most red-blooded American companies went that
Yeah,
route. It's unbelievable,
yeah,
which tells you how the leadership of these companies is divorced from their consumers. It's incredible. How could the
yes.
leadership of Jack Daniels go DEI or go woke? But they did. The same thing with Harley Davidson. I mean,
That was
again,
a shocker to me.
a complete shock, because people who lead these companies don't come from the base of people they're serving. Otherwise, they'd know this. But they got reversed because their customers found out what they were doing. Ford, another one, right? Think
Yes.
about the Ford commercials of our youth. They killed their crazy DEI stuff. So, and I think I saw University of Kentucky. So this is a college that did the same thing. So on a lot of fronts, things are really going in the right direction. They really are, and we can't, yeah, we want to like celebrate our wins, but like you were mentioning earlier, the foot has got to stay on the gas pedal. To
Yeah.
use the old track analogy, you have to run through the tape. Don't be celebrating before you run through the tape.
Yeah, yeah, and we have to, like, on social media, I keep if I see something, I just like retweet it and
Hmm.
share it to help to bring some awareness to different things, which is putting the pressure, and all of us collectively doing that is putting the pressure so that these corporations are going, you know what? I'm losing my base because our pocketbooks matter. What
Yes,
we're doing, it matters, and it's making a difference, and we have to do that. So I'm glad you had those other stories as well.
oh
Now,
yeah. I was gonna say real
another
quick because
okay,
Bobby
go
had
ahead.
Bobby's comment about too bad Disney won't do that. But I tell you, this is some other interesting news though. A number of movies are coming out here that are absolutely exploding and doing well without the support of Hollywood. So, for example, the Reagan movie is coming out here real soon, and it looks like it's just going to explode. So, those companies can keep producing garbage and keep losing money. But what's going to happen is other private companies are going to step into the hole, and it's just so great. So, let them keep doing that. They won't do it with my money though, and I think that's the way. That's the attitude we have to have.
100%. So in fact, I have you see the title of my name. It doesn't say Sunny Danforth down there. It says Teen Reagan Movie.
I
And
love it.
I have to tell you, I think Kevin used that yesterday because it was when I signed on to our restream, it was there. And I went, yes, I've seen the movie. I'm going to leave it there. So kudos, Kevin.
All right.
And
Did you see
yeah,
it? You
and
saw it already?
pardon?
Did you go see it? Have
Yes,
you seen it?
my
Okay.
my mom and I, Charlie, my husband was gonna come and see it too, but he just
Mhm,
wasn't feeling up to it. So
mhm,
we went and saw it Sunday afternoon, and then after we got out of there and I got home, I posted right to social media. Everybody must go see this movie.
wow,
And so apparently it exceeds box office expectations, and its opening weekend brought in $10.3 million. I just posted a link to that story from the
mhm,
Epic Times, and it is historically, it's great. It is a film for our times of where we're at.
mhm,
And so so yeah, this past weekend, August 30th to September 2nd,
mhm.
it brought in $10.3 million. And this is I there's so many movies that come out I don't pay. I will not go see. I'm not going to support that, but I will go see ones that I think will align with my values.
Yeah, and I think people are increasingly doing that. And the great thing about movies like this, they weren't like super big budget movies. They're doing it without the usual Hollywood support and word of mouth virtually doing having these kinds of results. And I wish I could think of some of the names of them, but there are a slew of movies of this nature that are coming out. And this is really positive because we have a whole generation behind us who didn't get to live Reagan. And I didn't realize how great he was until he was out of office. Like it is with most things in life, you don't realize stuff till you don't have it, right? But
Yeah.
wow, you
Yeah,
know,
hindsight's 2020.
yes.
And but this movie, and so you've got to see it. You and your wife have got to
Oh,
go
we're
see it.
going.
Grab some food.
Yeah, we would have gone already, but for this weekend in
Yeah,
Eugene, but
right,
we're
right.
doing that
And
is
Lori,
that.
I saw that you saw my post, and I'll tell you, so it's a lot of our followers and friends are going out and seeing the movie, and it's the history of what Reagan was going through. And Dennis Quaid did a phenomenal job in this movie. And I take my hat off and I to them for putting this on.
Mhm,
And what is interesting, Don, is that this movie they had to stop filming because of COVID. This movie was supposed to come out, I
mhm.
think it was 2023.
I didn't
And
know
it's better that it's coming
that.
out now
Yes.
because the timing is perfect, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
man.
So they
Oh,
delayed filming and because of the whole COVID mess,
mhm,
and it's just, I believe, historically accurate. In fact,
mhm,
Reagan's son said he wholeheartedly supports
mhm,
this movie and is behind it
mhm,
100%. So when a child of the real person says that, I think that
mhm.
speaks volumes because he's
Yeah.
overseeing,
Mhm.
the Reagan legacy truly. And
Well, I tell
it's
you, I remember where I was when I saw him say, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." It was like one of the best. I wasn't old enough to remember Kennedy's iconic "Ask not what you can do for you," but I
yeah,
was around for the Gorbachev.
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
me too, me
it was
too.
it was awesome.
So, other good news is that all 15 Arizona counties are suing for failing to remove the illegal aliens from the voter rolls.
Yeah, this is huge news.
It is huge news. And so it's that continued theme. We
Mhm,
have to speak up, we have to push back and do what needs to be done. And we have to encourage our legislators to to do the very same thing. And so, that's what we have to keep doing. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yep. Yep. Execute, run through the tape. And in
Yes.
our case, we're going to be running through the tape for the rest of our lives. It's just the shorter term tape is November 6th. That's all. So that's okay. They want to fight. Let's give them one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We got to win the fight. We've got to
That's it.
save it, or save our nation
That's
so we
it.
can help to save the world.
It's worth it. And previous generations had to face uh, physically more dangerous stress than we do. But this is just as dangerous, even though at the time being it's not physical. I mean, it's literally a battle for their minds. And you can see by the behavior of those on the left, they've lost their minds. Nothing else can explain, that we'll have a grown man look at a camera and tell you he's a woman, that we'll have men going in women's bathrooms. We're all supposed to approve that. Or I'm going
Right.
to address you by your pronoun, or any other number of clear insanity that we're facing. And we're just going to have to be uncomfortable. So many of us are afraid to be called names. But the reality is, um, the only way to save society is to be willing to take that hit. And we're not being fed to lions, like I tell my kids. You're not being fed to lions. You're not being hung on crosses, and we're not being shot in the back of the head. None of that stuff. A lot of people before us would have happily traded places. So we need to do our part.
Well, we do. And even though the social media might feel like you're getting fed to lions, you're not, you
Yeah,
know?
psychologically, it may feel like that, but we need to like grow a thicker skin. And go
That's
look at
exactly right. That's
and go look at
exactly
some
right.
World War II video. Then you'll be thankful.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I told my son, when he turned like 18, what your grandfather was doing, he was 18. He was like on a troop ship headed from England to Germany. How about that for your 18th birthday? So,
Yeah. Yeah. And, and this is the thing is I hope we can take our country back at the ballot box, that we can avoid a civil war, another civil war in our nation,
mhm.
because that's truly how seriously this is. It is good versus evil. There is a big line and division in our country, and we need to save our nation. And if we can do it peacefully, I'm all for it. But it
And this is
takes
the thing.
us all fighting for it.
The line is largely between us and the intellectual elites that run the country. The majority of the country does not believe in this stuff. And if you look around the West, this is precisely what's happening. It's true in Great Britain. You look at what's happening in London. You look at
Yeah.
what's happening in Stockholm. You look at what's happening uh,
France.
in France, Italy. You go around the world, all of these countries are facing the same thing. It's the leadership class that's trying to drag us into slavery. The majority of the population does not want this stuff. And they just have to be educated enough to respond. And it's interestingly enough, the thing that's doing it is this mass immigration thing. I mean, you thought it would have been, you thought the inflation and the damage to the economy would have been enough. But this massive immigration thing with
Yes.
the crime and the in-your-face destruction of the body politic
Hmm.
is probably a thing that's going to push it over, because you can't hide it. You can't lie about it when you see it physically in front of your face. And so, as bad as it sounds, that may be the blessing in disguise.
You're right. And I think it is Sweden that is saying, you know what, this immigration, if you're not willing to integrate, you need to leave our country,
Yeah.
because countries need to, this is why they're doing a huge migrational shift around the world of people that are not interested in integrating
Yeah.
at
No,
all.
because the thing is, look, it's common sense when you think about it. You have to have, for any group of people to get along, you have to have a common belief system in terms of how you're going to behave. Now, most
Mhm.
of us have confused that with race, because if you were in Nigeria, everybody's black, everybody's Nigerian. You have the same culture, the same belief systems. There's no argument about it for whatever your tribe is.
Mhm.
But you get to large countries like this where everybody doesn't look the same. We have to agree around a common core set of belief systems. Otherwise, why would I drive on the right side of the road and stop at the stop sign? I mean, to put it basic, there's no police around. You don't have to do that. 90% of the time, you're not going to get caught. The grocery store, we have what theft rate in grocery stores is something like 3%. That means 97% of the time, people aren't doing that. They're not doing it because they're not going to get caught because it's easy to steal from a store.
Yeah.
They're not doing it because it doesn't fit the moral code that we all live by, which we call Judeo Christianity. Whether you're Jewish or Christian doesn't matter. That's the code we live by in the West.
Yeah.
And when you bring people in who don't have that, that necessarily will destroy freedom because you can't have freedom and have people who disagree with the code because you have to have a cop on every corner. And that's why John Adams' famous observation that this can only exist in a religious people was absolutely right. You know,
Yeah.
substitute religious for moral code, and essentially we're saying the same things.
Hmm.
Uh, and
Hmm.
that's what's happening. Europe is imploding because they have too many people who don't share the same moral code.
Yes, and what you're seeing in New York is the very same thing, and in Chicago, in these Democrat-run cities that are
Sure.
have a lot of or Colorado. Look at in
Oh,
Denver,
it's unbelievable.
Aurora, Colorado, the
Mhm.
Venezuelan gang, they're taking over apartment buildings.
Yeah, it's precisely what they want. And to take it next level, if you took immigration out of the picture, we're creating citizens that don't share the same moral code by encouraging abortion, pornography, destruction of the family. So those people don't have a moral code. So you go to some of these inner cities where the crime rates are what they are. Well, that's because they're in a different way. They're just like the immigrants from countries that don't come from Judeo-Christian backgrounds because they don't have no moral code. They have something that's not this moral code.
Yeah, true. Okay, Lori, have a great night. Thank you for the compliment there. I appreciate it. And go grab your neighbor. Go see Reagan. Everybody go see Reagan. Tell everybody to go see Reagan. And let's make it a blockbuster. And it's fitting for the times.
Absolutely. Let freedom ring for sure.
Amen. Good night.